Okay, a quick short video just to make a link, and then I'm going to have to do a follow-up video on this because there's so much stuff to cover in it. This would be hours long, really. Covid and the cosmic egg. Okay, if you knock the C off the front of Covid, you end up with Ovid, which is the egg ovum. Okay. Now, when I was looking into this a few weeks ago, whenever it was, I think I came across it. Somebody had mentioned, I think I come across it in some comments somewhere, and lo and behold, a couple of days later, Crow 777 did a video on Ovid and Metamorphosis. Now, Ovid is, I guess he made this link, or somebody made it for him, I'm not sure, but Ovid is a Roman scholar, I guess, and he wrote the book Metamorphosis, which is basically a bunch of books or a bunch of stories on Greek myth. Okay, and within those stories there's like the creation story and a bunch of other things, and another one that pops up is the story of Orpheus. Okay, and I'm going to touch on that in a different video, but for now I'm going to leave a link for Crow's video. Now, I don't know what he touches on in the second hour because I don't pay for him, but I will leave the link in the description so you can go and look at that video, what he's talking about with Ovid. Now, the link that I want to make is a slightly different link, but it's connected. Well, I mean, of course it's connected, but it's connected in more ways than one. Let's put it that way. Now, this whole thing, this whole epidemic kicks off at the start of spring, you know, around Easter time. Okay, and what do we have at Easter but lots and lots of Easter eggs? You know, I love chocolate Easter eggs. I can't resist a Cadbury's cream egg. But that's not really what Easter's about. It's not really about eating chocolate. What it's really about is about rebirth. Okay, this is what the springtime is. It's all about rebirth, and that is why we have the egg. Okay, because the egg is a great representation of rebirth. It's a natural symbol of rebirth. Okay, everything is sitting in a static form within the shell for several days before there's any activity. The same as when we're in winter, we're in a static form with not much activity on the surface. You know, everything looks, it just is still, and then everything springs into life all of a sudden with a quite a burst of energy. And this is the egg. You know, this is, you know, the release of the new being, the birth of the new start, I guess. So this is why we have the egg. Okay, now another thing that happened right at the start of this whole episode was a guy by the name of Kobe Bryant. Supposedly died in a helicopter crash. Okay, now I'm going to make some links here, because that egg that you see on the front of there, okay, that comes from a chap called Jacob Bryant. Okay, so you can see already where we're going with this. This is basically two people with the same name. They've got exactly the same last name, and the first name, well, Kobe is the root of Kobe comes, or Jacob is probably the root of Kobe. I didn't look up the, you know, which, where, why, which one comes from where and what and why. But of course, Jacoby, Kobe is just an abbreviation of Jacob. Okay, so we got two guys with the same name. This guy dies at the start of this whole epidemic in a helicopter crash. Now, do you see where we're going with the helicopter? Do you see that serpent wrapped around the egg in a helix formation, a spiral, a helix, heli and helical? Okay, there's another link right there. So I mean, Another link is he's got his head shaved, so he's got an egg head. You know, I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful or anything. You know, but there's links there. So there's the link. Now, I couldn't really find much out about the book that was written by Jacob Bryant, but I'm assuming it was on. I'm assuming it's talking about the story of Orpheus. Okay, and of course I'm going to cover that in another video. I'm not doing it now. Basically, his wife-to-be ends up dying, and he ends up traveling to the underworld to try and retrieve her. And he manages to convince him to let her come back with him. And on the way out, there was a stipulation that if he was to look back, she would stay there forever. Anyway, he ended up looking back and losing her forever. Okay, so that's the story in a nutshell. Very quickly. Now, there's a lot of little bits and pieces that I'll go over in my video on that, and how I think what the relevance of the story is today. But this is not the first time that we have had a link to, of course, the Greek mythology. As I said, Crow 777's done the link to Ovid and Metamorphosis. That's more Greek mythology. This is Greek mythology, and now there's a whole bunch more stuff that comes out of this egg. To excuse the pun, stuff coming out of the egg. But I just did the video on 9/11 and 2001, that link, and that was simply because Matt over at Quantum of Conscience also made a link between epidemic being foreshadowed in that film. Now, I say the cosmic egg is foreshadowed. The idea of rebirth is foreshadowed in the film, and also the Greek mythology is also in the film with the Odyssey, and that's basically what the whole thing, the film's about, is a voyage of, I don't know, a voyage of enlightenment, maybe. It's just a cycle anyway of I guess rebirth. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's, you know, covered in that film. Now, I don't want to get into that film, and I don't really want to get into too much more, because there's you know, this idea of rebirth is in so many films, and the idea of if we look at the cosmic egg, and the character that comes out of the cosmic egg is Phanes. Okay, this sort of the first being, if you like. Kind of reminds me of, and I'll tell you what the image reminds me of, is the film The Fifth Element. When she is, because if you look at a picture of Phanes, the cosmic egg is wrapped in the serpent. Well, if you look at an image of Phanes, he also, well, I don't think there's a sex on it, but that being is also wrapped in the serpent as well. Now, it sprung to mind, and the hair also, the sun is within that image of him as well, and that image, so this cosmic being, it just struck a note with the Fifth Element, the film. Okay, and her hair, her being put in the incubator and rebuilt, and essentially growing for nothing, the rebirth, a being that doesn't know anything when she comes out of the incubator, wrapped in, hell, even the outfit they've got her wrapped in is very loosely reminiscent of a coiled snake. You know, they've got her, the outfit is just a bunch of loops. Okay, so I mean, very stylized, but again, it's reminiscent of that idea. And the idea is talking about rebirth, and then I guess the coming of the savior. You know, this idea of being reborn, and then that's really, I don't know, becoming aware and being reborn. Okay, and that's really the salvation that people are looking for. Okay, that's really what is going to save you. Okay, and of course we can get into some images of Jesus being reborn, and lo and behold, there are some images there with what appears to be the cosmic egg behind him. Now, I know that could be that. Also, that the thing that springs to mind with that image is also the Vesica Pisces as well. But you know, I'm just dealing with the cosmic egg, but it's essentially the same idea. I mean, where does the bloody egg come out of? It's the Vesica Pisces. So it's just the idea of rebirth. It's in all these films. I mean, Star Wars, all those characters, all the prodigal children, as we would call them, they all end up being of a divine nature, so they don't really have parents, so to speak. You know, I know Luke and Leia have parents, but they were all basically raised as orphans, which is where we get into the maybe the term orphan. You know, from because Orpheus himself was an orphan, I believe, although they link him in with other gods. For all intents and purposes, he was an orphan, and this first god, Phanes, if you put Orpheus and Phanes together, you get orphan, you know. So it's this idea of springing into life from nothing, not having parents. And of course, within the film, The Fifth Element, she has to learn everything as she's there. And that also sprung into mind, well, a link with Mork and Mindy. You know, Mork is in that, again, we're back to Greek myth again, because he comes down, I think he's supposed to be Zeus, and of course he's coming down, and he's a childlike, you know, being. He's got to learn stuff, relearn stuff, or you know, he's learning stuff or learning new stuff, and this is what the rebirth's about. It's about awakening yourself to or relearning new things. Okay, yeah, let's just leave it at that. So, but you see what I'm saying? I mean, the Mork and Mindy thing. I mean, what was I going to say about Mork and Mindy? He ends up, I mean, it's definite reference to Zeus, and Zeus is raised as an orphan, I think, as well, because of course Cronus is fooled by the rock. They wrap up a rock and feed it to him instead of Zeus, and so they send Zeus away to Crete. Now you've got two stone references there. Of course, you've got the show takes place in Boulder, Colorado, and Zeus ends up going to Crete as well. And just the idea of quickcrete or concrete. I mean, you can't write this stuff. I mean, I know I'm reaching a little bit with those analogies there, or the links, but you know, it's you can't on Crete. I think it's the Minoans that raise Zeus. So we're back to Mork and Mindy the Minoan. You know, I mean, this stuff. So where I'm getting to with all this stuff is that we're linking a lot of this stuff is linking back to Greek mythology. I mean, a ton of it is linking back to Greek mythology, which is interesting, you know, because it around that time. I mean, I'm sure they knew all this beforehand, and I'm not even I'm not even getting into the Vedic stuff with and not even the sort of Egyptian stuff, because I think a lot of that Egyptian stuff came over from the Far East anyway. But I've lost my train of thought now, because I just started thinking back to the Fifth Element and her name as well, Leilu, which is just that's talking about the lily again and rebirth. So I mean, you just can't get away from it. It's all about rebirth. And so when you start looking into all this stuff, and I just got into the numbers as well the other day, so I'll do a video on the numbers. But all this stuff comes out of Greek, you know, ancient Greece, and again we're back to, and I mean, I know they picked this stuff up from previous cultures as well, but the thing that springs to mind is the whole thing with mathematics, you know, and phi, the golden ratio, and that all that stuff springing forth. So it would be interesting, but anyway, you know, that kind of stuff, and I guess they've got a bunch of other Orphic traditions. So I don't know, you know, when you start looking into the math and all that good stuff, then you start talking about spirals and egg-shaped things and donut-shaped things, you know, and you get into all that idea of the shapes that are within the universe as well. So I don't know what else to say on this. I'm starting to waffle, and I should probably leave it there. I'm going to leave some other links. There's two other things I just want to touch on with the egg. Okay, one is a show video. It's an animation called I Pet Goat 2. Okay, and some people, I think most of you probably will have seen this, but I'll link it below, and you can go and watch that. But the egg is referenced a ton in this, and the cosmic egg as well, and you'll see the references. So that's one to go and look at. That is dealing with rebirth as well. It's littered with rebirth stuff and the events that are going on now and have gone on in the past. So that's one to go watch, and also Humpty Dumpty. Okay, and the whole idea of Humpty Dumpty, and maybe I should save this for another video, but let's touch on it real quick, and I may just break it down and put it in another video. This idea of Humpty Dumpty sitting on a wall, and the whole idea of Trumpty Dumpty right now trying to build a bloody wall, you know, just echoes stuff, you know, there's just echoes of names here. But the idea that Humpty Dumpty is sitting on a wall, he's balancing on a wall, okay, this is what he's trying to do, balance the two sides of reality, okay, and he's sitting on the wall and he falls off, okay, and all the king's horses and all the king's men can't put him back together again. Why can't the king's horses and the king's men put him back together again? That's a good question. So I save that for another day. Probably because the king is a fictional character and the horses are fictional characters. The only thing that's going to put Humpty Dumpty back together again is himself, okay? And once he's been, I don't know if that's a symbol of falling off between the illusion of the dual reality, falling from that position and then the shell breaking open, and then that's the idea of rebirth. You know, once you've been reborn and you realize the illusion of the dual illusion of reality, then there is no putting yourself back together in conventional terms. That would be like was it Cypher trying to go back into the Matrix? You know, he had already broken out of the egg and he wanted to be reinserted back into his pod, back into the Matrix. And in order to do that, you've got to have the King's horses and the King's men put you back in. Agent Smith's got to put you back in. Anyway, I've got to end it here because I've waffled way too long. And I'll pull some of these elements out and we'll discuss them in some different videos. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, bye.